Hello everyone, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. We have missed you. 2 months we haven't done a webinar and we kind of missed you. The last webinar was the 8.5 celebration, and it wasn't held by us but by the PM department, so we kind of missed you. We were behind the scenes, but this month you're ours, and let's begin. Today's session is going to be held up by myself, Sarah Lahav, VP of Customer Relation. With me today, responsible for the technical side, is Joseph Sargari. The agenda for today, the topic is My Desktop. We're going to talk about the new module implemented in 8.5. We're going to have small highlights that we'd like to emphasize that are not connected to My Desktop but connected to 8.5. By the end of the session today, we have a special offer. You will have to bear with us through the whole session in order to hear the special offer. And in the last seconds, we're going to show you and ask you to share your opinion with us and enter and fill in the survey. We are also available on chat. The chat, you can see the chat on written on the left side of your screen. Any question, anything, please write it in chat, and our representative will be happy to assist you. Any interesting question will be forwarded to us at the end of Joseph Zargari technical explanation, and we would share with you. Okay, let's begin. My Desktop. My Desktop is a new module, a new capability we have implemented in SysAid 8.5. We have stretched out from both sides our RCG capability. The new will enable your end users or yourself, the administrator, to connect to your remote computer from home. It's very easy and very convenient to use My Desktop in order to access your computer. I basically do it every day, and it's from anywhere, anytime, any smartphone, any tablet, any PC. The benefits of using My Desktop, it's the first benefit is that you don't have to have a third-party supplier in order to provide this capability to your end user. Today, if you would like your end user to be able to connect to their computer from home, you will need to have a whole set of licenses and to manage it separately. My Desktop Asset provides you the ability to have everything in one place. Everybody can use it. Administrator, end user, you can connect, you can to your computer, do whatever you need. It's easy to configure because there is no installation needed, and mostly the most complicated investment in using My Desktop is already behind you, because the only thing you need is SysAid agent deployed on your computers. And you know, in the spirit of SysAid, when we implement a new module, we provide you the ability to test it free of charge. So with just upgrading to 8.5, you get one free license, one concurrent license that enable you to try it, to provide your end user the ability to do it from home, see how it works for them. I don't think I really need to explain why this capability is needed. I think that we all, in today's modern world, are facing requirements where we need to be able to monitor, to log into our computer even for a few seconds just to see something. And you know, just provided the small example like edit presentation, and you know, the CEO is on the line and you quite don't remember what was the price list, what was something that you need. An easy way to access your computer and check something. And if you see the last point on my slide is that you don't have to carry your laptop, and I think this is basically what this thing is all about. Using SysAid My Desktop capability enable you to contact your computer from any mobile device and any computer, so you don't Everybody is going everywhere with his cell phone, with his smartphones this day. And you don't have to carry something else like a laptop in order to be available for work, in order to be able to do something. SysAid My Desktop asset only requires you to open a browser or use your end user portal and access your computer from anywhere, from everywhere. Even if you went to any kind of party, any kind of coffee shop, simply log in to your end user portal and remote control to your desktop, and it's very, very, very easy. Who can use My Desktop? Basically every user. It works for administrator or end users, because administrator has end user portal also, and that capability is accessible from the end user portal. There is no need for special installation. In some cases, in order to open a remote control session, you need to run some kind of an exe file. So this is not requiring SysAid. Simply log into your end user portal. You don't need any configuration on your preferences, no addition configuration in permission or settings on any user within SysAid. And there is no need for technical knowledge. Your end user already have the capability of managing and controlling the end user portal. So basically we are not asking them to know anything new. They will have a new link on their end user portal, simply log in and click on the computer they would like to remote. It's easy as that. Well, as I said at the beginning, we simply stretch the capability we already introduced in SysAid 8. My Desktop is based HTML5, the same as RCG, so simply using the browser capability. Almost all the browsers today already support HTML5. The connection is already encrypted and going through SSL, and it's firewall friendly. There is just one configuration, simple configuration Joseph is going to show you, and there is no addition, firewall configuration, remembering, changing rules. Just simple one configuration that Joseph is going to show you. Well, you know, if I had the pleasure of doing SysAid certification with you or going through any kind of implementation with you, you know that what I stand by is when you bought SysAid, you bought a worker. SysAid is at the office 24/7, so as long as your SysAid server is up, you would be able to use and enjoy My Desktop. And the other things that is also available is that by simply logging to your administrator login information, you will be able to see, Joseph is going to show you that you have two logs. You will be able to see who uses SysAid My Desktop capability and for how long. So even if you are not at the office, but SysAid is of course stayed at the office, you can log in from anywhere during any vacation, any Christmas, and see how much your end users are using, who access from home, and how much time it was logged in, into which computer, of course. Just to summarize, of course, and the whole benefits of enjoying SysAid My Desktop is that it's one-click configuration, meaning that again there is no end user setting and configuration required. You simply use auto-match, and Joseph is going to show you that. We implemented, and this is actually a good point to talk to you just a little bit about the license package size. My Desktop is not a module, even though we apply it as a module. If you are familiar with SysAid license structure, you know that in most cases when we refer to a module, meaning that you pay fixed price and you will get unlimited use. The same as the RCG, this rule does not apply to those two new capabilities. We are measuring the RCG and My Desktop in a concurrent license, meaning how many connections you can do at the same time. With upgrading to 8.5, as I mentioned, you get one free one. You would need to add upon that more channels if you would like to be able to connect more than just one user at a time. A lot of customers came back to us and they say, how much do I need? And basically we cannot provide you an answer to this question. You need to apply. We recommend to start at 5 and then monitor the logs that Joseph is going to show you exactly how, and monitor the usage. And based upon that, buy and extend your use of this capability. So when we implemented the price list, it was cost effective because you can grow. It's a grow-on solution. You can fit it to your size, and again, buy only if you need. SysAid, My Desktop, is basically when you upgrade to 8.5. Just one technical piece before Joseph will explain in depth is currently we have implemented to SysAid server a separate server named RCG server. When you upgrade to 8.5, the upgrade implement those two servers together. There is an option to divide those two servers and install the RCG server, the server that controls the traffic and the remote control, on a separate server. So it's also a capability because you can control and divide the performances of SysAid and the performance as a service you provide in My Desktop. And I guess the bottom line is that everything is in one place, in one solution. You already know SysAid, you don't need anything else, and basically it's all in one solution. So I stated Joseph's name a lot of time, and this is the time to forward you to Joseph.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for the introduction. We are going to go in depth into the configuration and setup of My Desktop. And let's start by talking about the requirements for the new module from SysAid My Desktop. So the requirements are pretty much based on RCG capabilities. Since the module is based on RCG capabilities, what you get is pretty much the same requirements. It requires the SysAid agent to be installed on client computers, which you probably already have because you have asset management with SysAid. It requires the server to be accessible to the end users over the internet if you want to allow end users to remote into the desktops from home, from anywhere basically in the world. You're going to need to make sure your SysAid server is accessible from the internet. On the TCP port, on the HTTP port, SysAid's listening on, which is 8080 by default, but if you change that, you're going to need to make sure the correct port is open from the internet. It is requiring HTML5 compatible browser on the end user side. So if the end user uses any type of mobile device like a smartphone or a tablet, or any old-fashioned PC or Mac, they're going to need a browser that compatible with HTML5, which is basically any modern device, any modern browser, Internet Explorer 9, Firefox 5 or above, I think, Chrome, all the modern browsers support HTML5. And last thing it requires is standard RCG configuration made on the SysAid server, and I'm going to show you closer to the end of my part in today's class. I'll show you how to configure that. Now let's take a look at a simple network diagram where we have a user located somewhere out on the internet. In this example, it's at home. And that user has a workstation located at the office, okay, within the local network, within the office where your SysAid server would usually be. And the end user has access to the SysAid server over HTTP through the corporate firewall. Okay, you probably have that set up already if your SysAid's accessible from the internet. The end user can just go to your SysAid server URL and log into the end user portal. From the end user portal, they can actually initiate the My Desktop session. At that point, the server will make a connection with the workstation, or better yet, it will request the workstation to make the connection back to the server to start the My Desktop session. At that point, the SysAid server is acting as a remote control proxy, It is basically tunneling the connection and allowing the workstation to stream the remote connection through the SysAid's server. Let's take a look at how this looks like within SysAid's. So I'm going to switch over to full screen, and I'm going to switch over to SysAid's, and I'm going to log in as an end user. So when I log into the end user portal, you can see I have a new icon here which is new to SysAid's 8.5. It is my desktop. When I click on that, I have a list of assets that I can remote into, okay? And I'll show you later how to add more assets in here. Each user could also click properties here and enter a description or notes, and that way they can keep better track of their assets themselves. You also have the button here, click to connect. When I click on that, the SysAid's server is going to leave a message for the client to start a My Desktop connection. Could take up to 30 seconds, but usually it takes less than that. Let's see how long it's going to take now. You can see I already have the session started. I can log in now. I'm just going to need to do Control-Alt-Delete and enter my password. It's going to take a few seconds for the login to occur, and then I'm going to get my desktop, basically my profile on my computer. I can zoom in or zoom out depending on the resolution. I might need to zoom out, like in this case. But just to show you how this is working, you can go in and you can play with your computer. You can open your PowerPoint presentation, do the quick edit, grant the permission that the CEO requested. You could do that remotely. If you need to scroll up or down, you probably notice there is no scroll here, similar to the RCG, the remote control gateway capability. What you need to do is just click and drag, and you'll basically scroll up, down, left, right to work with the entire screen. Okay, very friendly, especially when you go in from any touch screen, mobile phone or tablet. You can just swipe your finger to scroll up or down, left or right. So this is what the end users see. I'm going to close that. Now I'm going to log out and log back in as an administrator, so we can start talking about the configuration and management of the My Desktop module. So My Desktop configuration is quite simple, actually. All you have to do, there's one checkbox you need to check to enable My Desktop for the entire system. Basically, add the icon to the end user portal for My Desktop. Okay, that's the first configuration. It needs to be done once for the entire system to basically trigger My Desktop on. Then we also need to configure which user has access to which asset, and this is done by associating assets with users or vice versa. There are three ways we could do it. We could do it from the end user. So on the end user perspective, you can go into any end user and select which assets that user has access to. Or the other way around, you can go in to the asset and decide which users have access to the asset. Last option is auto match. What it does is it's looking in the database. It's trying to find which users should have access to which assets. The way it does that is based on two fields on the asset. One is owner, where you define who's the owner of each asset. That's one option. The other option is the users field, which is automatically populated by the agent every time somebody logs in. So if a user logged on to a computer in the office, that means that that user should be able to access the computer remotely. Generally, if they have access inside the office, they should probably also have access from outside the office. So AutoMatch will automatically detect which user should have access to which asset. After it builds these associations, you can go in and decide what you want to remove from what it did. Let's take a look at how this is done. So I'm going to go back to my SysAid here, and on the main menu you should see there's a new My Desktop menu option. On the home page for My Desktop, you'll see this checkbox which enables or disables My Desktop for the entire system. So if I uncheck that, the end user portal will not show the My Desktop option anymore. Okay, that's a system-wide configuration that affects everybody. On the top, you'll also see a bit of a summary. Okay, you see that there are currently no live sessions at the moment. Out of my 10 available channels I have in my license, so I'm not anywhere near my limitation. I can also see how many users are associated with how many assets. So just a quick summary to see where you're standing. Also, there is an HTML code that you can copy from here and basically embed into your existing web page to allow My Desktop My Desktop access from any external web pages you have, your internet site, if you have an employee zone on your internet site, so you could put it there. Now let's go in and see how we can associate users with assets. So first of all, let's take the user I already have, and here you can see that if I go into, there's a new tab here, My Desktop. If I go here, it is going to list all the assets that this user has access for. In my case, it's only one, SUP018. I can add more assets here. So let's say CertXP3. Well, that would probably be enough. Let me click select, and you'll see that this user now has access to two assets, to two computers. When they go to My Desktop from the end user pool, they're going to have a selection between two assets. Now let's take a look at that from the other perspective, from the asset perspective. I'm going to go in to CertXP3, the computer I just connected, and go to Access List. That's also a new tab in 8.5. When I go here, you can see all the users that have access to this asset. So same here, you can click Add Users, decide which users have access to this workstate, to this asset. Let me grant access to myself, and let's grant access to Sarah as well. And I now have 3 end users that have access to this asset. Now, actually, let's go ahead and see what that looks like on the end user portal. I'm gonna open another tab on the same system, log in as the end user, go to My Desktop, and now you can see I have 2 assets here listed, and I can remote into any one of them, and that's basically what you get when you are allowed to access more than one computer using My Desktop. Now, on the admin side, going back to the My Desktop configuration pages, you can see 2 pages here showing the associations. There's registered users and there's accessible assets, where the accessible assets show you for each asset which user could access it. You can see SUP018 is accessible by this user, instructor, whereas CertXP3 is accessible by more than one user. You can hover your mouse over it and it will show you which users are allowed to access it. In my case, it's instructor, it's Joseph, and it's Sarah, and you can see that from the asset point of view. You can also see that from the user point of view. You can see that there are 3 users as opposed to the 2 assets. You've got instructor, who's allowed to access SUP018 and CertXP3. We also have Joseph and Sarah, who are only allowed to access CertXP3. This is how you make the associations from the end user perspective and from the asset perspective. Now let's take a look at the automated option, which is AutoMatch. We have this option right here on the top of the list. It also appears under accessible assets. It's doing the same thing basically. When you click on that, it's gonna pop up and show how many matches it found, that it could add. So if I click OK, it's gonna add those new associations. We now have 7 accessible assets for 5 different users. So we see that administrator is getting access to quite a lot of assets, 3 here. We also have Bart Simpson getting access to CertXP1. The reason why Bart got access to it is, and if I go into that asset, CertXP was 1 or 3? That was 1. The reason is because Bart Simpson is defined as the owner. That's the owner field I told you about, where you can go in and define who's the owner of each asset, as opposed to the user field, which basically documents who logged on to that computer. Actually, if we go into CertXP3, we can see the administrator logging on, so that's why it associated administrator with CertXP3 using the AutoMatch feature. Okay, let's proceed and talk a little bit about management of the My Desktop module and auditing. So first of all, we have 2 pages basically. One is active sessions, which basically lists all the live sessions, all the currently live sessions, and it also allows you to choose some of them and disconnect them. So you can choose a session. You can see a session that's been taking place for a very long time, and you want to disconnect it to free up the license. You can just select that session and disconnect it. The other page we have is audit logs. Audit logs basically writes down different types of activities related to My Desktops. Every time a user is being associated with an asset or vice versa, it will write that in the audit logs page. Every time a user does a My Desktop session on a desktop, it will show that. It will show all past sessions on the audit logs, and it will also show if the session has been terminated by the administrator, the option we have from the active sessions page. If you terminate a session, it will be written in the audit logs. And last option is, remember Sarah explained about the licensing structure. You are limited to a certain amount of concurrent connections on My Desktop. So anytime all connections are used up and somebody else tries to initiate a new My Desktop session, they're going to fail to start the session. They're going to get a message saying that you're out of licenses. It will also write it down on the audit logs page. So every time you're going to see a message like that, it means that somebody wanted to do a My Desktop session and you were short in licenses. That would indicate you might need to purchase some more licenses. So let's take a look at these 2 pages. Before I go in, let's open a session from the end user side again. Give it a second to start. And after it starts, I basically want to show active sessions right here, active sessions. Okay, you can see it's already showing up here. Connection is already started. Now you can look at all the information we have. We have who's the username that's doing the session, what's the IP address that this user is coming from, what's the computer that they remoted into. You can see the session ID, which would probably not mean much to you, but each session has a different session ID, a unique ID. We also have the RCG server that is acting as the remote control proxy for this session. By default, in normal installations, you will only have one RCG server, which is embedded into your SysAid's server. That's why you're going to see here the name of the computer that is hosting SysAid's server. In my case, it's IT001. But you can install more servers. If we have time, I'll talk about that as well. And you also have when the session started. So basically, if I want to disconnect that session, you can see that session is still live. I can still play with it, do Control-Alt-Delete, and do the connection. I can simply select it, click disconnect, and from the end user side, they're going to see this message here: my desktop session disconnected. So this is how you disconnect a session. That's the active sessions page. So you can always go in and see how many sessions are being held at that specific time. You can also go to audit logs and find out more about the recent past, or maybe the far past, and see what happened. For example, what we can see here is a remote session terminated by an administrator. You can see it tells you who's the administrator that terminated it. Okay, in my case, the username is SysAid, so it says was terminated by admin SysAid. Another example is associations we made. Okay, this isn't an association. This is a connection we just made. So user instructor connected to asset SUP018 from the IP address using RCG on IT001. We also have the associations we made, so Sarah and Joseph associated to CertXP3, and let's see what else. That's pretty much it. I don't have any message here about insufficient channels, but if you get over your license limitation, if you exceed all the licenses you're allowed for concurrent connections, and someone else tries to open a new session, you're going to see a message here saying that that the session failed due to insufficient channel. Now let's go ahead and discuss the network configuration. This is the only thing you might need to configure that is not within the web interface. This is basically the network configuration for RCG. We started talking about my desktop by saying that it is based on RCG. So same configuration here. This is a config file located in the SysAid's server directory. You can see the path on the top left. This file doesn't contain the configuration by default, but you can add it. It's these 5 lines, okay, right above the closing tag for server conf. And these 5 tags define the settings for RCG and my desktop. So we'll start by talking about RC bind IP. If your server has more than just one IP address, and you want to limit RCG to only listen for incoming connections on just one IP address, this is where you would configure it. You would configure the internal IP address on that tag. My recommendation is, even if you have multiple IP addresses, don't specify anything here. Just let SysAid bind to all IP addresses on the remote control gateway port, which is the last configuration here, RC agent port. In my case here, it's configured to be 443, and that's the port you're going to need to open on the firewall to allow incoming My Desktop connections. You can change that port here. If you don't define this port, it might be dynamic. It's going to try 443. If it would fail, it would try 8443. If that would fail, it would just try to find a random port number that is available. So if you do need to set up something on the firewall, you'll need to fix it here. You'll need to fix the port number here. And last option, which is the middle one here, is RC server host. This is where you need to define the host name or IP address to which you want the client computers to connect back to stream the remote control connection. Okay, and if your client computers are located all inside the local network, you're probably going to need a local IP address here. But if at least one of the computers is located on the external network on the internet, you will need to specify a host name or IP address that is accessible from the internet that will lead to the RCG server here on this port 443, and this is basically going to tell the clients go ahead and make the connection back to 4.3.2.1 on port 443. This is the configuration that is required on the config files on the SysAid's server in terms of network. Now let's see if we have some time for questions. Yeah, let's take a look at the chat and see how many questions we have that are repetitive. Actually, there is one thing I wanted to mention, and I can see some of you are asking that question about the RCG servers. Basically, the RCG server concept might not be very easy to understand, so let me just talk a little more about that. When the client computer makes the connection back to the SysAid's server, it makes a connection back to the RCG server that is embedded within the SysAid's server. So it would work pretty well when we're talking about a few simultaneous connections. If you have more than, I don't know, 5-10 connections going at the same time, and you need more concurrent connections, you might need to add another RCG server so that it would not harm performance. That's why we might need additional RCG servers. So when you need more than 10 or even 5 connections, you will need to install an additional RCG server. The configuration of the RCG server isn't very trivial. If you need to get more than 5 or 10 simultaneous connections, you should contact your account manager in the customer relations department, and then we'll help you to configure that. Okay, let's see if we have any more questions. Yeah, let's see. I have a question here about if a user can connect to more than one computer at the same time. So yes, it is possible. If the end user has access to more than one computer at the same time, then they do have the option to remote into multiple computers at once. They will simply have different pop-ups that each will be a connection to a specific server. I think we're short in time. Back to you, Sarah.
Yes. You probably saw me dealing with the computer. We had a small technical issue. I think this is the benefit you have to see us in live. Thank you, Joseph. It was very, very interesting.
Thank you.
And I'm sure that now everybody's running to contact their account manager in order to use my desktop. More information, highlights from 8.5. In SysAid release 8, we have implemented a new module named Password Services. In SysAid release 8, if you wanted to unlock your computer or reset your password, you needed to use your colleague computer. You need to go to another computer in order to be able to enjoy that capability. In 8.5, we've implemented new 2 ways that will extend the experience to the maximum. You can do it from any smartphone, as you can see here. You can do it from any smartphone because everybody carries a cell phone. And you can do it from the actual same computer, and it's going to show on the log off screen. So simply you can unlock or reset your password from the same screen. You don't need to bother somebody else. Special offer. This is the time for the special offer. If you haven't bothered your account manager by now, so this is the time. The special offer we have introduced in 8.5. We are going to go with it until the end of March. So the offer is 30% off if you purchase password services and at least one password services.
My desktop.
My desktop. This is again the beautiful adventure of going live. And one channel, at least one channel of my desktop. And we are going to extend that offer until the end of March. So if you want to enjoy that special offer, and I'm sure you all want, so you can contact your account manager. They will be happy to send you a quote or a special offer supporting our offer. We would like to ask you again to share your opinion with all of us. And we just showed you how you can find the survey. So if you will enlarge on your screen, please minimize it back, and a link on the bottom will show up, and you will be able to share your opinions with us on the survey. I know you can see only Joseph and myself, but there is so many other people involved in this webinar, people that you don't even get to see and are with me in the actual room, and I would like to thank all of them for helping us to do this webinar, to send you notification, to get you all aboard, and I'm sure that we will be better from time to time as we get more experience in doing so. It was a pleasure getting you all back and doing the session today, and I'm sure we will be enjoying you all next month when we are going to talk about SysAid measurement tool. So be good until next month, and we will see you here all next month.